Daily and weekly, we Christians, like others, turn to the Bible for reassurance that God is walking with us on our journeys. Our faith and our hope empower us to cope with overwhelming issues that affect our lives. A recent Gallup poll reported that the top 3 things that we Americans are concerned about are the economy, poor government leadership, and unrelenting virus, COVID. Of course, there are other pressing issues, such as the growing gap between rich and poor people, clashing opinions about vaccinations, voter legislation, the slow demise of democracy in our republic, and of course, climate change. Our frustrations with these issues have incited quarrelsome divisions, sadly, in our families, our neighborhoods, our churches, our schools, and even our town halls. And the rancor among elected officials is not helpful. These cracks in our society, however, challenge you and me to reflect on those ways where our faith and our everyday life meet together. So how does our faith intersect with our daily work, our daily concerns, our children's needs, and so forth? So we heard about it in the gospel. The evangelist John wrote a collection of astonishing episodes, miracles, to convince his unbelievers that Jesus was the Messiah. So John was paving the way like John the Baptist did. And like other biblical anecdotes, this one about the miracle addresses what is necessary to turn water into wine. I don't know about you, but I wish I knew how to do that. Even though Jesus claimed he was not ready for ministry, he conceded to his mother's plea. He showed his skeptical followers that he had a unique ability to do wondrous deeds, particularly when the lives of other people were at stake. So he would come to the rescue of those folks. Jesus' vision was that every situation and every person must be treated with respect and care. And as he carried out this task, Jesus was showing you and me and all the others how to be partners with God in bringing about a kingdom, the kingdom of God here on earth. See, a lot of us wait until we die for the big decision, whether we're going there or there. Our task is to establish the kingdom of God here and now, a foretaste of eternal happiness. Psalm 96 that we heard sung today, that we sang together, asserts that we are to proclaim the marvelous deeds of God to all the nations. And our recessional song today reminds us that we have been sent out on a mission of love. You and I, sent out on a mission of love. However, as you and I go about exercising our baptismal ministries, we have to ask ourselves, where is God in this moment of history? Why doesn't God get rid of the COVID? Why doesn't God bring peace to every nation? Why is there so much clamor around the world? Where's God in all of this? Isaiah the prophet in the first reading asked a similar question. The Israelites were rebounding from years in exile. They were held captive. They wanted to rebuild their temple destroyed by the Babylonians, but life was so harsh for them, like it is for many today, they gave up on God. They gave up on God. Old Testament scholar Callie Plunkett Bruton surmised that the loss of self-rule and the continued absence of physical and symbolic stability represented by their temple building meant that God was absent to them. They felt like God had left them alone. God had abandoned them. I mean, I'm sure sometimes we feel that way. Where's God? With a vision for the future of Israel, Isaiah continued to pester God to keep the promises that God made a long time ago, that God would never leave his people alone, that God would never abandon us. So Isaiah, as we heard it read, emphasized, "For Zion's sake I will not be silent. For Jerusalem's sake, I will not be quiet. So, how do you and I use our voices to make God's kingdom on earth a reality? In Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, we heard that this morning, we are reminded of the many gifts we have. No matter what our talents are, each of us is blessed in some way. Each of us is blessed in some way. And we can be a blessing to others by speaking up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of those who are destitute. So using our wisdom, our knowledge, our faith, healing, prophecy, discernment, maybe you just have a wonderful smile. Maybe you say hi to everybody, whether you know them or not. Those are gifts. Those are blessings. And we can turn things around by using the blessings that we have. We don't have to have every charism, every gift, but if we use the ones we're very good at, we will begin to see results. Imagine if everybody just smiled at one another and said, "Tell me why you feel the way you do." We would go a long, long way to reaching some peace and harmony. As we remember Martin Luther King Jr. this weekend, we recall the innumerable ways he used his voice and took risks on behalf of poor and vulnerable people. Like Isaiah and Jesus, Dr. King also had a dream for the future. He sought to change water into wine. That is, he wanted to end poverty. He wanted to end racism of every kind. In King's words, there is nothing new about poverty. What is new, however, is that we now have the resources to get rid of poverty. There's no deficit in human resources, he wrote. The deficit is in human will. Sometimes our wine runs out. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like my wine has run out. And I'm not talking about real wine. We get discouraged. We become anxious over things we can't control. There's little money to pay the rent or mortgage, buy groceries or gas. Our wine's running out. We distrust even our closest friends and some of our family members. We begin to overlook the needs of others, and sometimes, yes, we even give up on God. United Methodist pastor Ishmael Ruiz Milan remarked that the Cana miracle, turning water into wine, is calling each one of us to identify what needs to be redeemed in our world so that it is in alignment with God's plan for us. So the time is now for miracle workers to show up. Jesus modeled for you and for me a life dedicated for speaking only the truth, caring for those who need help, advocating for laws that are just, living in that way during these troubling and unpredictable times. You and I also can turn water into wine.